안 되면
가스까지 못 오면 수연에
Perfecto. Yo creo que ya no voy a necesitar que interpretar porque esa fue la señora que me interpretó.
it must be on the mom. Thinking that mom was how to do it. I didn't get it. I was like, $81 for eight.
What's that? Oh, they did let me be co-host. I'm just gonna admit. Okay, yeah, but they have an interpreter. Yes. I can see it.
Okay. No podemos ya desatar el video.
Live. All right, we are returning from recess. I believe we've resolved our technical difficulties. Translation is available. Do we have Trustee Conley?
I'd like to make a motion to move item 9D in front of 9A, if that's possible, because I think there is a significant amount of public interest in 9D and a lot of people who've been waiting to speak.
We also have quick comment from staff.
Maybe quick comment from staff. Our auditor has been waiting for a couple of hours now to do their presentation. And then last year we bumped them to the next meeting. They had stayed through an entire meeting and we bumped them, just for context.
I think we will still take the audit report and actually go through it, how availability wise, but I am okay with switching the order, but I do think we should do the audit report tonight and actually hear the presentation. I don't know practicalities of that.
Sorry, I
Also,
misunderstood
the
what you
audit
said.
Report should not take very long.
He can abbreviate it.
Abbreviate it, okay. I do want to make sure we get the full information and we consider this because I don't want to rush through these things necessarily. What is their deadline for tonight when we should let them release them?
I know he will stay as long as needed. I was trying to be mindful of last year that what occurred.
Yeah, I don't.
That's all.
Do we want to? I will listen. I'll
If
entertain a
needed, I am
motion.
happy to make a motion to extend the meeting later on.
Okay. Do we have a motion to move the budget reductions forward and can still do the audit report?
I did make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? I'll second. I'll call the vote now.
There's no vote.
Oh, I second. I seconded. We vote, right? Yeah. All right, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Oh.
All opposed? Nay. The motion passes 4-1. Trustees Conley, Reed, Henry, and DeFazio in favor, and Trustee Lambert opposed. We will now move on to the budget reductions item. We'll take that first. collect myself real quick. This is a discussion item only. No action will be taken tonight. I'll ask now Superintendent Bear to present the staff report or to hand over the staff report.
All right, good evening. We'll get the presentation up. I'm glad we got to this and got everything working. So we're going to bring forward to you tonight budget reductions update. The board charged us back in November of bringing forward $9+ million worth of recommendations for you to consider. We brought in excess of that, so you have some room to make some decisions. I do want to, I know it's been referenced a couple of times, I do want to hold the study up from Orenda Education as a backdrop here, that what the key guiding principles there were fewer priorities, right? Implemented deeply, creating coherence in our school district from the school level up to the site, or from the classroom level up to the site level, up to the district level, to really protect core instruction and focus on that, and really in creating greater coherence, removing some of those layers of unaligned support. So there's a lot involved here. But I think keeping that report in mind for serving our students better is really going to be key to all of this. So let's move forward. So just background, reminding you, you've seen some of this before, but I think it's important to set the context that we have been talking about this since early September, since the school year really began. Go ahead. All of those can be accessed for reference. This is from our, at the time, assessor. Congratulations to Nisa Flagger, who was elected county assessor. I think she'll be installed on Monday the 26th. But the assessor, Greg Monteverde, highlighted a couple of things, right? Really recognizing that we're not alone in this decline of assessed valuation, that there has been a significant slowdown, lowest growth rate in a decade. And this is really driven by commercial real estate reductions. They are still going through the reassessment rolls. So we expect these to continue. And the statement from the county assessor is that we should expect this for the next several years, similar growth. Keep going. You remember this graphic, I think, really showing that Mountain View was really lagging behind. There are actually a couple of call outs in the paragraph about Mountain View and the low growth, right, coming at the bottom with 0.51%, and it states a far fall from its top position last year at 7.69%. So keep going. Though it does not help us, it's good to know that we're not alone in this, that other school districts, other neighboring districts are experiencing very similar slowdown in AV growth. Go ahead. And then looking at AV growth and reserves, we have experienced strong growth over time. With that, we have built reserves to address situations just as this one, right? To carry us through for a period of time so we can make thoughtful decisions. Keep going. So moving forward, as I said, we anticipate several more years of this. We really weathered this storm this year, not treating it as a crisis, but really looking at how we need to right-size our work here. And as I said a moment ago, in pairing it with the report from Orenda Education on how we can better serve our students, I think looking at these two things together will be important. So you've seen this before. This is as a reminder, the blue stacks indicate our level of deficit spending. This year, we committed to what has turned into $3.7 million worth of deficit spend. Next year, that balloons to $11.3 million worth of deficit spend. We're spending our reserve down, as indicated by the orange line, expecting a 26.3% reserve level next year. But as you can see, 3 years out, and we are well below 10%, below 5%, and then going into negative. And we, stating the obvious, cannot have that. Okay, next slide. So this is a slide we added to demonstrate what will happen if we actually do move forward on a $9.5 million reduction for next year. You can see what happens to the deficit spend. It shrinks significantly, down below $7 million in most cases. As a reminder, that 27-28 year has a textbook adoption in it, so it does present higher. And then you can see that the drawdown on the reserve, that orange line, flattens out quite a bit. And this is really what we're looking for, is a way to create what we would call a soft landing, with the anticipation that muted AV growth isn't going to last forever, and that it will come back over time. And how can we create a situation where we're not cratering the reserve, that we're taking care of our deficit spend, and AV growth comes back as well. And I will just put out there that as AV growth does come back, I really think we need to, as a district, be considering what portion of that growth we're spending on ongoing expense, and what portion we are spending on expenses that we don't expect to be forever, right? Either it may not be 1 year, but it may be a project with a contained horizon. All right, moving ahead. So we added quite a number of staff. We've seen this in our own slides, and we saw it in the Orenda slides. Through the pandemic, with one-time dollars that were allocated during that time. Much of that staffing included at-risk Fs, PTs, site coaches, newcomer teachers. You can read the list. That money has gone, that pandemic money has gone away, that one-time money. And at the same time, our AV growth is shrinking dramatically. So we have that confluence of financial factors. Keep going. This is that hour slide that demonstrates that a royal blue line at the top shows our number of students over time, over the last almost 10 years. All of the other lines, the green line, the light blue line, the orange line, and the red line, all show our levels of staffing and the number of people we have added to our school district to serve kids. Keep going. So, and we saw similar from Orenda. This is not heartening at all, right? But as we add staff, our performance has actually remained static or declined, right? And we have to change that. Go ahead. All right, with regard to community feedback, I went around to the schools. We had group meetings at elementary schools. I went to each of the middle schools. I have met with principals and directors. Orenda also collected feedback, visiting all school sites in the district office. We surveyed parents, staff members, had specific focus group interviews with target staff members as well as community. Going. We have done surveying around Stephen Rhythm and Moves, and we've also surveyed parents regarding budget considerations. Keep going. So in terms of what we heard in our surveying, these are the key insights. I'm not going to read them word for word for you, but there's really alignment on reducing costs here at the district office, protecting classrooms and learning, and technology consultants, non-core programs were the most frequently cited reduction areas. Keep going. This is a table showing, I'll let you have a look if you haven't seen it before, but left side parent, top 3 themes, right side staff, top 3 themes. Just wait there a second, showing. Okay. And then in graph form, top areas for budget reductions, parents in the royal blue, staff in the light blue, restating the same themes. Okay. So our plan going forward, after we have had this meeting, I'm glad we got to have it tonight, we'll again be reaching out and asking for feedback on what was presented. We'll use that information as a data point to inform the final recommendation. We'll bring that information back to the trustees and also include it in the next presentation that's posted on this topic. Keep going. And so just as a reminder, at the November 20 meeting, the board requested that we bring back options for reductions. And then in December, we asked for a number, and you asked for 9 million plus in reductions to have a look at. So we've done that. Go ahead. And with that, we want to walk you through what those recommendations are. So Kathy and Rebecca are going to take care of that. Go ahead.
So staff came up with various recommendations based on our guiding principles of prioritizing quality instructional time, maintaining flexibility to respond to different site needs, to strengthen the role of the principal and classroom teacher, to deepen connections, to try to reduce duplication and clarify responsibilities, and focus limited resources on the highest impact student-centered work. Staff has compiled a list of reductions for options for the board to consider. So this is a high-level summary of what we'll talk through tonight, ranging from reduction of district office administrators and staff, PE or STEAM, SCEF, ARIS, and BT reassignments or reductions, ELOP elimination, reduction of tech in grades, reduction of tech in grades K through 3. Just as a note here, staffing is represented in the DO reduction. So what you're seeing in that number is just the hard cost of like the things that we buy. State preschool elimination and having custodians every other night. Looking at this chart, this is looking at the proposed cuts to the district office, which comes out to a savings of 3.78 million. And I won't read through each one.
So one of the things that we considered, and you saw that we did a survey, is the idea of bringing instruction for either STEAM or science or PE back to the elementary teachers. Currently in STEAM, all elementary sites have dedicated STEAM teachers. Instruction is provided to students 2 times per week. And while the students are in STEAM classrooms, teachers either provide small group intervention because half their class goes to STEAM and half their class stays back, or in some cases, the whole class goes to STEAM and the teachers co-teach with another colleague in math. This is all the difference in how RTI is done is all related to the addition of reading intervention and the impacts on the schedule. For rhythm and moves, students in grades 1 through 5 get PE 2 times a week for 50 minutes. This fulfills our state requirement for PE, 200 minutes of PE every 10 days. And then it also fulfills the contractual requirements for weekly preparation time for our elementary teachers. So they do not have to be out at PE. We did survey teachers in grades 1 to 5, asking their preference, thinking about STEAM or PE. And we looked at classroom teachers plus STEAM teachers as a total. There were 70 respondents and 58% wanted to eliminate the STEAM program and actually bring STEAM back under their purview. When we asked classroom teachers only, there was 58 respondents and 67% would prefer to teach STEAM as opposed to PE. And when we asked the STEAM teachers, of course, they wanted to eliminate rhythm and moves. They're very passionate about the work that they do. And then we looked at some of our behavior support staff. We looked at our at-risks, our school and community engagement facilitators, and our behavior techs, and looked at all of these positions and trying to find a way to propose a more streamlined model that would preserve essential services and reduce overlap, and also allow our principal and teachers to play a more direct role in student behavior, family communication, and school community connection. The proposal is that sites would retain ARIS services at their current levels, but we would look at the ARIS role and review it and redefine it a bit in relation to the job description. We are proposing to reduce the SCEF allocation to more closely align with the unduplicated student counts across the district. SCEFs are paid out of supplemental funding from the state, so tying those two things together. But not making sure that all sites have SCEF services. And then currently we have behavior techs that are assigned by site, and they provide a variety of roles. So the idea would be to reassign them to fulfill student and programmatic IEP needs and not place them for site-wide use. So looking at this, site-based BTs would be reassigned from being site-based to actually assigned to either a student or a program. We would reduce ARIS services from 11 to 9. The reduction would come from reducing 2 to 1 at Castro and 2 to 1 at Graham. I apologize. Reducing 2 SCEFs from 9 to 7, assigning them by UPP, and reducing from 1.5 at Castro and Mistral down to 1 each. And then 5 elementary sites would share some middle school sites. And this is not including our McKinney-Vento liaisons. And then we're also going to increase our number of unpaid counseling interns to continue to provide more support for students, but that is without additional cost. So this is what it would look like, what we have now, and how we would excuse me, change it. Graham, Critton, and Castro and Mistral would continue to have a full-time SCEF, and then we would use 3 SCEFs, and we could configure that among the other sites in a variety of different ways. Next is discussion about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. This was established to provide after-school and summer school enrichment programs for transitional kindergarten through 6th grade students, unduplicated students. And when ELAP first started, it was a requirement from the state. Districts had no choice. All districts had to participate in the program. And the state has provided funding since the inception of the program, but that funding has changed and has dropped since the inception of the program. And beginning this year, actually, new legislation allows districts to choose to opt out of the program due to whatever the district wants, but a lot of it is related to the inability to fully fund it. Next. So the goal of ELAP is to provide unduplicated students with a total of 9 hours of care, including the school day, for each of the 180 school days. 9 hours of care for 30 additional intersession days. So that could be summer, over winter break, February break, April break. And then we have to maintain student adult ratios, 10 to 1 in TKK and 20 to 1 in grades 1 to 6. Currently, our ELAP programming is provided by both our district BTB program, which is funded through the ACES grant, and by the YMCA. Our current enrollment, you can see we have 566 students enrolled in ELAP and 337 enrolled in BTB. So again, ELAP is not required beginning this year. Funds are allocated to districts based on unduplicated count of pupils, and it uses a two-tiered system. So districts with 75% or more unduplicated pupils are considered tier 1, and tier 2 districts that have lower than that have variable rates in tier 2. So we are a tier 2 district and currently do not receive enough funding to meet the program's needs. So we are required, if we accept ELAP money, either as a tier 1 or tier 2. In tier 1, you have to, if you're a tier 1 district, you have to offer ELAP and after-school programming to every student in your district. When you're a tier 2 district, you're only required to offer it to all unduplicated students. Enrollment does fluctuate because it's an offer every year. Who needs it, who doesn't need it, who wants it. And I think there's a lot of flexibility in ELAP where families may opt in for as many days needed each week, each month, each year. They can come once a week, they can come twice a week, they can come 5 days a week, they can come twice a month. So I think up until this year, what's made planning for ELAP difficult is that funding allocations haven't been finalized until after the governor's budget, which tends to be in June, right? So it makes forecasting a little bit difficult. And we've been able to utilize carryover funds to run ELAP for the past 4 years. We didn't start right away. We were allowed a little bit of flexibility, and we waited and planned and started a little later. So that allowed us to amass some extra funds. But we are going to fully expend those carryover funds this year, leaving over $1 million in general fund costs. And we're looking at a total cost of about 1.6 million each year moving forward. I will note that the governor did come out saying he wants to more universally fund ELAP. The projection we have seen is $1,800 per student. We currently receive $1,575 per student. So if we did receive the $1,800, that would reduce that number down to about $1 million of general fund money from our projection. So if we do opt out, BTB would still be available for students for after-school care, but BTB cannot accommodate all unduplicated students in its current form. Currently, we have 5 schools with ACES grants, all with different levels of allocation of students. We have applied for additional funding to increase BTB enrollment across the district. We applied for every school and applied to try to get enough funding to cover every unduplicated student. Originally, we were told that we were going to hear the answer to that application in January, and now the website says February 15th. We checked yesterday. So moving on to state preschool, and I just want to say you have an updated presentation. We did do some updating to these slides, and we added some additional slides with some options and more information for you, which I'll take you through. So currently, state preschool, we are contracted for part day, part year California State Preschool. So preschool serves kids starting at age 2 years, 9 months through entry either into transitional kindergarten, if a parent chooses, or into kindergarten. So our funding comes from the state to cover the cost of having half-day sessions, AM, PM, for 175 days a year. The annual contract amount that we receive from the state to run preschool is $2.1 million. Unfortunately, though, with our current preschool configuration, we do not or cannot expend our full state contract each year, and the unused portion is either returned or kept by the state. Contracted funds that we get can only be used to pay for expenses related to part day state preschool eligible students, which means that the cost of the second half of all of our extended classes and our after school care, right? And any student that's in part or full day that's non-preschool, state preschool eligible has to be paid for by the district or paid for by fees that we collect. So as a result of the decisions, right, we've expanded preschool, we've made full day classes, we've added after school, we're only able to utilize about 65% of our contract, right? Leaving a portion that the district has to cover. We do collect fees. We collect fees in approximately $315,000, and it does partially offset the costs for the programs. Our fees are well below market rates. And so the estimated cost to continue to run extended day after school care and add non-state preschool eligible children to our program is about $700,000. So the other couple things to think about is our preschool costs will continue just because of normal salary and benefit costs, they will increase. And there's some unknown implications of the PK to 3 credential. There's a new credential out by the state that allows teachers to teach preschool through grade 3. And we would have to look at how teachers are compensated. Currently, our preschool teachers are not credentialed and they're on a separate salary schedule. And so there's potentially costs related to meeting contractual requirements. Our preschool teachers are currently not part of a bargaining unit. So there's unknowns with what are the implications of the new credential. If we realigned preschool with the state contract, only offering part day, part year, or a combination of part day and full day, part year, with approval from the state, could bring the program back to cost neutral. And the next couple of slides will show a couple of those scenarios. So option 1 is we maintain our current configuration. We have enough spaces here. You can see where we have full day and half day classrooms and the max enrollment in each of those. It means this scenario maintains spaces for fee-based families. So families not eligible for state preschool, meaning they don't meet income requirements. And then it preserves part day, extended day, and after school care. It keeps class sizes at an optimal rate because we do have an influx of 3-year-olds now because of transitional kindergarten. We're seeing kids coming in younger and younger. It maintains our current staffing levels. It maintains early intervention and opportunities for collaboration and inclusion with our special ed preschool, which is important. And it preserves a high quality program. We heard Director Kemper today, and we saw all the amazing things that are happening in preschool. So option B is part day. So that's returning to alignment with our contract. So that would be essentially a cost neutral program. We would not have spaces though for fee-based families, and all families in our preschool program would have to meet eligibility criteria, income, IEP, housing insecurity. There's a whole bunch of criteria for meeting preschool eligibility, but it would eliminate the extended day and the after school care options. It would reduce preschool classrooms and staffing. You can see we would not have as many classes. It maintains our spaces to maximize our funding and earn as much of our contract as we can. Maintain smaller class sizes to support our younger students. Still allows us to have inclusion with our SPED preschool, and still allows us to have a high quality program for our vulnerable populations. And then there's one more option. Option C is to ask the state to modify our CSPP contract to be part day and full day. So again, if we are staying within our contract, we can keep the program cost neutral. Again, we're not going to serve as many students, but we would be able to have some full day options, some classes from 8 to 3. Again, though, in this option, we would only be able to serve families meeting eligibility criteria. And when we switch from part day to full day, eligibility criteria now becomes income-based. Becomes income-based, but it also becomes need-based. So now families have to show why they need a full day. For example, so you have one parent works, one parent goes to school 3 days a week. Well, under the state preschool criteria, that child would be eligible for 3 days a week of full day preschool because the assumption is that parent is there to take care of them on the other 2 days. Lots of regulation in state preschool. It would eliminate after school care. It maintains the extended day option, reduces classrooms and overall staffing, maintains our spaces to maximize our funding, optimizes our classes for our younger kids, allows us to collaborate with our SPED preschool, and preserves access to to high quality preschool. So those are just some options for consideration.
Another option for consideration is moving to have custodial service every other night. If we switch to having custodial service every other night, the restrooms would be clean and sanitized daily at all school sites, as well as the trash being taken out. But classroom vacuuming and surface wipe downs would occur every other day. Common areas such as offices, staff rooms, high traffic spaces would be cleaned on a rotating schedule. Of course, things like spills, health concerns, or urgent needs would be immediately addressed regardless of the schedule. We would also continue to do periodic deep cleaning as scheduled during breaks, weekends, and summer. And then a shift would be for after-school programming. We will not have daily custodial support. So renters would need to bear the cost of custodial service. Right now, when a renter is on campus, if a custodian is there at night, that's not a charge because it's something that we would clean typically. But because we would not have a custodian on site for that, we would need to start to charge renters for that custodial service. This would reduce our night custodial staff by approximately 50%. Another option to consider is a reduction in technology. So right now, this is the current status this year. So in TK, there is no classroom tech. In K, we have carts in the Chromebook if a parent requests it. First and second, we have carts in the classrooms, and then every student is assigned a device. And then third grade through eighth grade, we have 5 learner Chromebooks in the classroom, and then every student is assigned a device. As an option, we could move to, you'll notice that it's color coded, and then there's arrows on the right side showing the amount of technology available to the students. So
I'll interrupt you. We're approaching 10 o'clock. I think we might need to extend the meeting.
Yes, I make a motion to extend the meeting until midnight.
Second. All right, we'll take the vote. All in favor of extending the meeting until midnight? I say aye. Aye. Motion, all opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Trustees Lambert, Conley, Reed, Henry, and DeFazio in favor. Thank you. Sorry for the
no
interruption.
worries. So we would still continue to have no tech in TK. In Kinder, we would have shared carts, Chromebooks if the parent requests it, first through third grade carts in the classroom, and then a Chromebook if a parent requests it. And then 4 through 8, we would have 5 loaner Chromebooks, same as it was previously in the classroom, and then every student would be assigned a device. So this is a table of all the proposed cuts that we've gone over this evening, the number of FTE associated with each cut, and then the total cost savings. And on this final slide at the bottom, there are 2 different options. One is for reducing rhythm and moves or reducing STEAM. So for next steps. Okay.
That's fine. So what we're looking for tonight, right? And this is just discussion tonight. Is what additional information does the board need in order to give direction? And that will inform the final recommendations we bring to you on January 29th. So those are needed by the 29th, just as a reminder, because we have requirements that need to be followed, legal requirements that need to be followed. It takes some time to implement. So that's that it, Shelley? Okay.
Thank you for the report. Are there any clarifying questions from the board for staff? I assume there will, so I'll try to be orderly and let's do one question at a time so everyone can get their questions out, and then we'll do rotations through. Trustee Henry.
That was gonna be my first question, but it wasn't gonna count as a question, how we wanted to do, because I know we all have lots of questions, but yeah, one at a time and rotate. So my first one is with rhythm and moves, currently fulfills the contractual requirement for weekly prep time. So what contractual changes would be necessary if we chose to
We would utilize the STEAM, if we eliminated rhythm and moves and had teachers teach PE, we would utilize the STEAM time for teachers to have contractual prep time.
You can follow up if you did not receive it.
And what would that mean for RTI time?
It'd have to be reconfigured because that would be non-duty, it would be prep time for teachers. So the RTI program couldn't exist in the same way it does now.
Thank you.
Trustee Lambert,
You wish to take these just sort of at random here?
is there clarifying questions for staff if you have things that have not been answered in the presentation? And then we'll do the public comment and then discussion as we weigh our options, but get as much information as you can that you don't think was in the presentation yet. Trustee Lambert.
Okay, I'll just make some structure to this. I'll follow up with the STEAM and rhythm move section here. So how will these teachers have prep time? Or will they have sufficient prep time?
Yes, they will have prep time if we keep rhythm and moves. That'll be their prep time during PE. They won't be teaching PE. If we eliminate PE, eliminate rhythm and moves, teachers will teach PE and their prep time will come during STEAM time.
So let me just clarify that. I mean, we're not eliminating these programs, right? We're having the teachers, regular teachers teach some of these programs. Is that correct?
We're having teachers pick up a subject area, either PE or science /
I think that's important to state, right? That we're not eliminating these programs. We have
No.
to teach them. We're just, different teachers will be teaching them. So can regular classroom teachers, are they trained to do PE and STEAM?
we would have to provide professional development. We'd have to buy curriculum. We'd have to buy equipment, all of those
It looks
pieces.
like we're only talking about one of these pages, maybe we're saving 4 teachers in this.
For teachers.
I don't know. I'm forget that question. I'm confused with something else.
Okay.
Okay, I'll allow.
We can go to another, or are you still clarifying?
The next trustee can go. I will come back to other questions
Thank you.
later.
Trustee Conley, do you have a question?
If the STEAM program, I mean, both of these options, STEAM or rhythm and moves, basically mean ending RTI. And my understanding is that the literacy intervention program, however, will continue, correct?
That is, we have not recommended that for a reduction.
Okay, because the literacy intervention program has mostly been aimed at lower grades, and I don't feel like we've seen data on the outcomes of that yet. Schools have spent a lot of time building these labs, basically, and building up science resources. What will happen with those facilities, those materials, that space? How will all of that be used?
I think those are things up for consideration. I mean, we could continue to keep the science rooms open so that teachers could bring their kids into those rooms to do hands-on activities, so that they're not taking up classroom space. They could be teaching in the classroom and teaching in the lab. I mean, there's lots of possibilities there.
Trustee Reed?
I'd like to get a cost saving estimate on freezing the management salary schedule, even temporarily, and if the trajectory of our line changes even in the course of half a year to a year, maybe considering something like a retroactive pay for that pay scale, but I'd like to see some numbers on freezing management.
Yeah, I'd like to add the confidential staff to that request as well.
I'll tolerate that was not phrased as a question. So I'll start with my more optimistic side of questions. So one thing I've poured over a bunch of our budget reports and things. And one thing I noted was that in the first interim report, there's the call out of routine repair and maintenance fund requires a 3% contribution, and we contribute above that 3.51%. I'm wondering, doing the math on that, I think that was like 4.6 million, and then backfitting it, that 0.51% is about 675,000. If I'm doing the math right, and you can correct me. But how much of that is urgent and is actually required to be funding that? And would that be something we could is that something that we have considered temporarily, maybe going down to the statutory, at least while we're in this situation?
So for our routine required maintenance, the set aside, we actually spread it across our maintenance staff, and our custodial staff were actually doing that routine maintenance throughout their daily work. So it's funding staffing and not projects right now.
Just to clarify, we would have reducing that would fundamentally change some of the programs we have and the operations that we need to keep going.
Yes, reducing that, if you took it away, we'd be laying people off.
Okay, so the contributions that we're doing are in and out, and we don't store we don't run
We do not.
Okay. Trustee Conley.
Trustee Henry hasn't gone yet.
Oh, yes, Trustee Henry. We'll continue the rotation. Thank you.
On the topic of the at-risk SCEFs and behavior technicians, one of the, on page 31 of the slides, one of the pieces of the streamlined model is that this streamlining it would allow the school principal and teachers to play a more direct role in the student behavior, family communication, school community connection. So I was wondering I think it's probably a superintendent question, but talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, it would put some of the responsibility, specifically around student behavior, if a student sent out of the classroom, in the control of the principal, rather than going directly to an ARIS, for example. And we're not, with regard to the SCEFs, it's not eliminating from any school, but it's reallocating based on UPP count. So that some schools wouldn't have coverage every single day. And in that situation, there would have to be some coordination with the school principal.
Trustee Conley.
Yeah, I have a
Any-
question about ELAP and a question about preschool. So it looks like we might only have to spend $1 million on ELAP instead of 1.66 million if the governor's budget holds. We have to get all the way through the May revise and budget trailer bills and things, but let's say hypothetically we kept ELAP this year because state funding is uncertain. We're not sure what's going to happen. Could we do a concerted push in the coming year to expand the BTB enrollment and move as many students out of ELAP as possible into BTB so that we, in future, we're kind of starting to gradually transition out of that program rather than like a hard stop?
So BTB is funded through ACES grant, right? And so we only have the ACES grant at a certain number of our schools. And with each grant, we're only funded for a certain number of kids. So if we wanted to move kids out of ELAP into BTB, we could, but we would then have to have a contribution to that to cover the cost.
And we've applied though to expand that.
We have applied.
So
yes.
if that, I mean, unfortunately, we may not know
Right.
when we have to make this decision.
Right.
Which is not how I like to make decisions. I guess what I'm asking then is if the ACES comes through and expands the BTB options, can we then move as many ELAP students over into BTB as possible?
Absolutely.
So we decrease our overall ELAP carry for next year, even if it's not eliminated.
Good, yes.
Okay. And then just speaking in terms of data for future meetings, I asked in the trustee questions that were submitted for disaggregated data on preschool. Unfortunately, the link, I'm not allowed to access the file to read it. So I appreciate that the data was provided, but we aren't able to access it. And Similarly, I asked about if we have updated performance data, and I know it was a short turnaround to try and get performance data for students coming out of our preschool program. If we could have that before the next meeting, that would be wonderful. And just generally speaking, we haven't had an overall update on the preschool program since the spring of 2024. So if it's possible just to get kind of the written report update that we would normally get. I'm thinking about all of the different, we saw it some in the presentation tonight, all of the different outside agencies that our preschool program is coordinating with, for example. That's something that would probably be in an update as well.
Thank you. Trustee Lambert?
Yeah, concerning the preschool program too, is how was how did we begin subsidizing this program, and what was the objective of that? And remind me then how much we are spending on that.
So we're projected to spend about $700,000 to offset costs. We were asked to find a way to offer extended day classrooms. To move away, we used to offer just AM, PM classes, and there was a need expressed to offer full day classes for families.
And then how did the district then come to sort of bear some of the cost of that?
Because it doesn't fit in our contract.
Excuse me?
It doesn't, we cannot claim the cost for students in a full day class under our preschool contract because we're not contracted for that.
Does that mean there's an opportunity to sort of remove the subsidy?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the options, there's several options that we presented that we could, two options we could do to do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We can go next. Continuing my optimistic side of this, how far have we explored the revenue, like diversifying our revenue side of this ahead of cuts? I know that, for example, I had the pleasure of attending the city's reorganizational meeting, and one of the things that the outgoing mayor had in their remarks was specifically around how much the city values affordable childcare options and thing. Have we explored any sort of, I think, alignment with our core competencies with the city, right? I know recently in the past we've, for example, I know we don't want to revisit joint use agreements, but we did take on maintenance costs for that the city was previously doing. Are there mutually beneficial arrangements we can come with which would offset some of those costs? I don't know. Anyone has the.
So I don't think those conversations have not taken place, right? Because they just recently, granted before I was here, but within the last 5 years, changed their agreements that they're no longer providing that maintenance work and that tree work and so forth, or not maintenance, but landscaping and tree. So that's very recent. We could certainly ask if they want to revisit that.
I don't think we would have that in time for
Right.
January, but I think the general question of we're experts in
Right.
child education, and we have very good people on staff maintaining these things, but they do a lot more trees things. And I think any other revenue side things that could offset some of these costs or lower our expensive in that side might be useful. I wonder how much we've explored that.
So following the line of thinking then that we would then realize the revenue would be realized through maintenance and operations layoffs.
Potentially. I think these are all.
Yeah. Okay.
These are all things that we will have to decide how these are structured, right? And we would have to go through our priorities of the community and the staff and everything to make some of these tough decisions. They're all trade-offs. I just want to have as many options on the table as we can. Trustee Henry?
Going back to the ERA, SCEF, and BT topic, I just wanted to for so it's a total of elimination of 2 SCEF positions. One kind of the 2 halves from Castro Mistral, and then one of the kind of the other, currently the other 7 schools have 4 total, but 6 of those schools already have a half. And then Therekoff has 1 full. So then Therekoff would be grouped with the 6, correct? Has there been, so currently 6 of them have a half. I was curious if has been, what the discussion would be of the possibilities of how they would be shared now that those would be shared across 7. And then also just the part of that would be just how their current, how the ones that are already shared, how that sharing works.
So yes, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. They could, the 3 SCEFs could work together and work with all the sites. The other option is we could go back to a model that we had before, where our schools with the lower unduplicated counts, Bub, MI, and Stevenson shared 1, and then the other schools would each have a half. So that's one option. Pre-pandemic.
So in that example, those 3 schools would go from a half to a third.
Mhm.
And 2 of those schools already have a half.
Mhm.
And then it would be just as using those as an example. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Lambert?
Sure. I'll ask about the janitorial services. Do we have an example of any school districts who do have every other day janitorial service? And does this actually work?
It's what we implemented in Los Altos School District. Yes,
Well, it can work.
it can work, right? I mean, you want it every night, but it is a way to realize some savings.
I have another question. Yeah. There's,
Okay, continue. Go ahead.
you've made it, optional. You recommend, one plan is to make it optional for grades 1, 2, and like K 1, 2, and 3 to have Chromebooks. Why stop at, why for those? Why can Chromebooks be optional for those grades?
Part of it is because they would be on a cart. And so the Chromebooks would still be in the classroom. The kids would have access to them when they needed them. So it'd be a cart. Whereas right now they have a specific Chromebook assigned to them and then they take it home. Another piece is also because of our curriculum. And then
So we could change Chromebooks completely right now. We purchase print material curriculum for all of our elementaries. And then we also have access, students can access the curriculum digitally, either on their own personal device at home or on a district device. At middle school, a lot more of the curriculum is done through the Chromebook. We could change that and purchase textbooks in social studies. Eureka Math's not a problem. Social studies and science, we would have to purchase 1 textbook per student. Our language arts curriculum right now is mostly fully online. It's definitely we're ready to go through a new adoption, and students would have to have access to a Chromebook to access that until we make a change.
But not necessarily at grades K through 3,
No,
just for the other grades that,
correct.
for them to do the homework at home.
We buy the print materials so that they can take the print materials home at grades K to 5. Having the Chromebook is just a nice option. And we tend not to, it's just an option for them to have. So we purchase the print materials. So at in elementary school.
I think that clarifies things, yes.
Holly?
Yes, and I think this will be my last question for now because I want to hear from the public as well. Looking at kind of the proposed reorganization of at-risk SCEF and behavior techs, is it possible to adjust these a little bit in different ways? I think we're going to have to make cuts. We all know we're going to have to make cuts, but my concern is about one, keeping it away from direct classroom instruction as much as possible, but also equity and like where are our highest needs, most vulnerable students. And so I assume the reason, for example, that we have 2 areas at Castro and at Graham is because we have a high concentration of vulnerable students at those sites. And for example, why we have 1 full-time SCEF at Therkoff as opposed to many of the other elementary schools is because there's a high concentration of need at that site. Is that correct? Okay. And so I would like more information about, and it's kind of been alluded to, how we would be supporting students based on the unduplicated counts at their school sites. So a little bit more information about how this is going to get broken down and played out, especially with the SCEFs. But even just looking at Castro and Graham, you know, does it really make sense to take areas from there as opposed to taking them to one of our schools that is perhaps doesn't have as many vulnerable students and isn't having the same level of behavioral disruptions? So that piece is, I think, important for us to know. And in light of all this, we hired full-time counselors this last year, and they aren't on this list at all. So we do have behavioral supports that are happening with a full-time staff person that we haven't had full-time until this year, correct? Right. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Reed?
On the flip side of, we're looking at lots of cuts, on the bringing in money side, I'm wondering, I know that the El Camino Healthcare District has recently, come upon, a little bit more in their budget that they have room for taking more grants. I'm wondering if we have reached out to them for any type of assistance for some of our programs. I know that they funded the school nurses and other things for us currently and in the past. And if we could reach out to them to help fund some of these things that are on the cut list.
I know that that was actually already in progress. Tara was reaching out because of the additional funding.
I can go next. So as I alluded this in one of my trustee questions, I'd like to get a sense of how we anticipate monitoring some of these changes that we're making, right? Because we're making changes. We're tasked with making changes with limited information about what the impacts will be. And so there's uncertainty about this. So there's 2 sides of that. One is, right, I think this was around the custodial changes. How do we know if that's going sideways? Like, we implement this, we don't think it will adversely affect it, but what are our indicators that we're going to have? And I think that applies across the board to all of the cuts we decide to make. And then the flip side of that is, how regularly are we getting updates from the assessor on AV? Again, my optimism. If they, appeals dry up, there's less exposure that we have to that, or commercial starts rebounding, and when we can trigger a revisiting of some of the cuts we're making now and bring that back, like, do we have a plan for that?
We can certainly revisit that, but the guidance from the assessor was that we should expect several more years of the same.
Thank you. Trustee Lambert?
Yeah, going back to this preschool, about how many kids participate in the half-day program and how many in the full-day program?
Right now we have, off the top of my head, not looking at the number, 71 students in half day. We have 135 total, So that other part's in full day.
Okay.
And Director Kemper has provided you access to her document so you can see the enrollment.
I think I was thinking about one of your questions, Charles, how do we know they're working, right? We have some pretty clear data from the Orenda study, and I'll specifically point to the behavior support, that the more behavior support we have, the more incidences we have. So it's something we can certainly monitor, one of those.
So one of the proposals here is to increase the number of unpaid counselors or interns. What role will they play, and tell us something about who these interns are?
They're going to be students that are looking to get their hours, right, to fulfill a variety of different licenses. So they'll be working with kids. It's similar to when we had CHAC. CHAC had a lot of had interns, right? So we would add interns to our cadre of already licensed counselors.
Thank you.
Do you read?
I'm looking back on the graph on page 12, and I'm seeing with the recommendation of the 9.5 million in reductions and with our lease revenue, we're seeing with these cuts, we do have a slight increase in reserve level for next year before it starts to dip. I'm wondering what this orange line would look like if we did partial and split the cost savings between this year and next year, what that trajectory would look like outward. So it's not as big of a cut for this year. And we're splitting, not trying to cut and try to put a lot on our staff all in one year if we can save some of it for the next year. So if we're saying, hey, staff, we're kind of asking you to do all this stuff because all these other positions are being cut, if we could split that, what does that look like for our line of trajectory?
Trustee Lambert.
Yeah, I'm going to phrase this in a question. You explain as the TOSAs, I think, get reassigned, and where those openings will come from.
Well, it'll be a variety of things. It'll be natural attrition. It'll be new classes opening. It'll be teachers that are not coming back to the district, a whole variety of.
And you do not anticipate them pushing out teachers who are, currently working.
No, the response to that question is we do not anticipate laying off any teachers. We have no anticipate, sounds like maybe we have no plans to lay off any teachers. That's not in what we're recommending.
Right, thank you.
Any further questions? All right. I think in the interest of receiving public comment, we'll move on to that portion of this item. So appreciate everyone's patience with us. Give me a moment to get back to. All right. I will in person gather a comment card. I will need to count this, and online, please use the raise hand function. Try to see how many, is that all of the in-person cards? And then how many, sorry, I'm trying to find how many online we have. 4 online. Can you write down the names for me, and then I'll be able to call them because I cannot find my Zoom window. All right. This was, how many was this? We have 11 in-person comments and 4 online. Now there are 6. I'm closing online collection because I've counted the cards. So 17. So that puts me at about 1 minute per person in the interests of being respectful of everyone's time. I'd have to do that with the consent of the board if we have a.
I would also like to note that if someone needs translation, they get double
Yes,
the
if
amount of time.
anyone on here needs translation, you'll get 2 minutes rather than 1, but are we okay with that as the time allotment? I try to be fair within the 20 minutes that we have. So we will start with in person. So first we have Ling. I shuffled, so.
All right. Okay. So seems like we have some tough decisions ahead of us, and I don't envy you guys, but I want to say that. Okay, so one of the things I notice is when you lump teacher cuts with DO cuts, it doesn't build trust. But I want to note that 3 MVWSD administrator roles are the highest paid in California, and another 3 are in the top 5 highest. Okay. And if you look at our administration performance, it's rated a C+. So when it comes to what we pay for, we're not really getting what we're paid for. And I hope we can look into making changes there so that
Thank you for your comment. It's very brief, I'm sorry, but if you have further comments, you can send them over email. I appreciate it. I need to be fair to everyone. Yes, I will call up the next person. Thank you for the suggestion, but please, in public, do not shout. Do not shout to the board. Next up is Anna S. And then after that, I will have, I believe this is Nyung. And then after that will be Ms. Chelik. Those are the next 3 cards.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm wanted to speak on behalf of ELAP students at Mistral. So there are 226 unduplicated students at Mistral. It's the highest of all the elementary schools. 164 are in ELAP. None of them are eligible for Beyond the Bell because Beyond the Bell does not exist at Mistral. And so I just really encourage you not to eliminate ELAP funding unless the Beyond the Bell expansion is guaranteed. That it was such a hardship for our families before the ELAP program was introduced. The other question I have is about the janitorial funding for after-school programs. I kind of wondered what that would mean and what the implication would mean for the various after-school programs that PTAs often bring to campus. Right now, there is sort of the sense that the district has very high rental fees, which can often discourage programs from coming onto campus. It's one of the reasons I think that we see more programs at perhaps the schools that perhaps could afford the programs more than some of the other schools. So that's just something I'd like to ask about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. As stated, next will be Nyung. And after that, Ms. Chelik.
Hi. Thank you again. So I just want to reiterate it, like with the DO staff moving to school site in different roles, will the salary be adjusted to align with the new roles? Preschool is, I was looking at the cost, like what people are paying. It's currently if it isn't income based and need based, if we're offering such a huge discount, it should be like that. I mean, Santa Clara Unified has preschool. They're offering half day at 1,400. We're offering half day at 650. And some are, like for people within Castro, some of them are like in the zone of free. So like, and they're paying their director less. We're paying our director a lot more, number 1 in state of California. And so like, our revenue and our expense are in reverse, so no wonder we're in deficits. And then that doesn't help the family. We have to shut down preschool.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Ms. Chelik, you are up. And then after that is Eric Poikond, followed by Lillian Good, and then science teacher. Ms. Chelik.
Thank you. I've got more detailed comments in writing, but I just want to focus on 3-4 things. One, I support funding the STEAM teachers, cut the outside PE contractor rhythm and moves. Why? Because children learn reading, writing, and math by moving their bodies. Classroom teachers can integrate reading and math lessons into PE. For example, kids can do the number of jumping jacks based on rolling giant dice. They can count giant steps on a Cartesian grid and learn to graph X and Y. They can skip and chant letter sounds in the directions of writing giant letters outlined on the pavement with cones and ropes, etc. 2, cut the technology budgets for laptops and educational software for K through 3rd graders. Human-to-human learning is much more impactful than screen reading. 3, make preschool pay for itself. Charge all non-socioeconomically disadvantaged families the full cost, including the Castro boundary families who live in Shoreline West with average home prices of 2.1 million.
Thank you for your comment.
All right. And please continue to support the science of reading. Thank you.
Next, we have Eric Poikon. And then Lillian Good, you'll be after that, and then science teacher.
Good evening, President DeFazio and trustees. My name is Eric Bacon, a resident of Mountain View. I hope not to take long. The reason I'm here today is to implore you to not do any cuts to the daycare program that many families, and as we heard earlier today, teachers benefit from. I think it's a huge disservice to be even able to consider this, especially knowing that this is a tough decision that y'all are making later on in the following weeks to come. But just imagine how much more difficult it is for a family to decide whether they're able to go to work or they have to stay home in order to take their kids and still have to face the consequences of whether or not they'll be able to pay their rent. So I'm here standing in solidarities with families and staff who will be impacted by this, and I hope you make the right decision in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and I apologize for the mispronunciation of your name. Ms. Good?
Hello. I came tonight to make an impassioned plea to maintain STEAM and RTI. But instead, I've been struck by the multiple programs that people have talked about that have been important to their families and to teachers. The district office has not adequately explained the consequences of these cuts. They've not explained how they'll adjust to still provide for the needs of students and teachers. For example, how will RTI be reconfigured? No statement there. How much is it going to cost to buy a curriculum for STEAM? How much would it cost to buy new equipment for PE? None of these things have been answered. At the 11th hour, preschool, more options have come to potentially save it and to be cost neutral. How many other programs might there really be other options for that we can look into? This, given with the historical repeated excessive overestimation of the deficits, we should not be cutting important programs now. We should pause. We can cut technology. We can reduce district office support staff, optimize efficiency, reevaluate programs, but not cut staff at school sites, including teachers on special assignment.
Thank you. Science teacher, you are next, followed by Douglas Lang, Paula Perez, and Maria Cuesta after that. Science teacher.
Thank you. As my name suggests, I am a very concerned science teacher. I think that the district or the board members should take strong consideration. I understand the teachers feel important that they voted that the PE program should be cut, but instead, I think y'all should think about the importance about the science program being cut instead. It's very important that we have highly qualified already science teachers teaching science because I know that at the middle school level, it accelerates, and so I think it's really important that you'll take that into consideration, which one you're going to cut if you do have to cut one of them. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Douglas Lang.
Good evening, board and Superintendent Bear. I know these decisions are difficult, and as a teacher at Graham, even seeing Harris's or SCEF's or custodial staff cut is kind of hard to bear. I know these cuts are hard no matter where we look, but I do want to point out, Trustee Reed, thank you for your ideas that you are bringing forward of how we can go about doing this without cutting personnel. And that's just what I want to reiterate, and I want to concur with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Next, Paula Perez. I think we will need translation for this, so you have 2 minutes.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Paula Pérez y soy madre de 4 hijos y 3 de ellos se han beneficiado de el preescolar que proporciona este distrito. Hoy estoy aquí como una madre que ya se ha beneficiado y como representando las voces de todos los padres de Mountain View para pedir que no cierren el preescolar. Eliminar el preescolar estatal es un ajuste más al presupuesto. Es una decisión que impacta el inicio del camino educativo de nuestros niños. El preescolar es la base del desarrollo educativo, social y emocional de nuestros niños. Para muchas familias como la mía, este preescolar fue la única opción que nuestros hijos llegaron a tener para llegar listos al kinder, seguros y con herramientas reales para aprender. También quiero decir algo con mucha honestidad. No es justo que como padres y madres tengamos que estar luchando una y otra vez por algo que nuestros hijos ya merecen. El año pasado estuvimos aquí presentes abogando para que el preescolar no fuera eliminado. Y hoy estamos aquí otra vez defendiendo lo mismo, lo que a nuestros niños les pertenece. Esto no debería ser una lucha constante. En lugar de estar aquí pidiendo que no quiten el preescolar, que es esencial, deberíamos estar trabajando juntos para fortalecerlo y expandirlo, no para deshacernos de él. Hoy les pido
Thank
que
you
no
for
voten
thank you for your
en
comment.
el cierre de los preescolares.
Thank you. I
Gracias.
think we will need now the time for translation. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Paula Perez. I'm the mother of 4 children, and 3 of them attend preschool in this district. Today, I'm here as a leader with Parent Voices. I'm here as a mother from the Mountain View community who is deeply concerned about the proposal to eliminate preschool. Eliminating state preschool is not just another budget adjustment. It is a decision that impacts the very beginning of our children's educational journey. Preschool is the foundation of our children's educational, social, and emotional development. For many families like mine, this preschool was the only option to ensure that our children arrive in kindergarten prepared, confident, and with real tools to learn. I also want to say something very honestly, and it's not fair that as parents, we have to fight over and over again something our children already deserve. Last year, we were here present advocating so that preschool would not be eliminated, and here we are again. This should not be the constant struggle. Instead, we're here being asked that preschool, which is essential, not be taken away. We should be working together to strengthen and expand it, not make it disappear. Today, I ask you not to vote for the closure of preschools. Think of the children who are not yet able to speak. Think of the working families who have not other options. This is not just the issue of numbers, it is an issue of justice, equity, and community responsibility.
Thank you. And apologies if this is my first time fielding public comment. So we'll have 1 minute for the initial comment, and then the translation we'll get another minute for. So I apologize for my confusion here. Next, we have Mario Cuesta, and then Liliana Camacho, and then a blank card.
Estimados miembros de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de Mountain View, Wisman. Mi nombre es Marilu Cuesta. Soy padre líder con Parent Voices. Vivo en Mountain View y mis 4 hijos se beneficiaron del programa preescolar en este distrito. Yo exhorto a que los cambios al presupuesto escolar no se hagan al costo de la educación de nuestros estudiantes. Y también los convoco a que escuchen las voces de los niños y sus historias de aprendizaje, y que consideren en continuar la excelencia académica sin cerrar ningún centro educativo preescolar en el distrito escolar de Mountain View Wisman. Gracias.
Thank you.
Dear members of the Mountain View Westman School District Board, my name is Marilu Cuesta. I live in Mountain View, and my 4 children benefited from attending this district's preschool system. I urge that changes to the school budget not be made at the cost of our students' education. I also call on you to listen to the voices of the children, their learning stories, and if possible, to the stories of their families, and to consider continuing academic excellence without closing any educational centers.
Thank you. Liliana
Good-
Camacho.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Liliana Camacho. I am a mom of four, a longtime Mountain View resident. I'm also an organizer with Parent Voices Santa Clara with many parent leaders here in Mountain View. My ask today is that both preschool and the ELO programs not to be touched in any budget cuts. These programs are essential for families. Preschools gives our youngest children a strong start in their education, and the ELO provides a safe structural place for our school-age children's after school. Both allow parents to work knowing that their children are safe and supported. It's very disappointing and heartbreaking to see preschool programs being discussed for cuts again. On November 16, 2023, preschool was discussed and there was a real chance it could be cut. Parents came together and spoke up and shared their stories. Because of that, the decision was to expand the preschool program and not to cut it, and that gave families hopes. In 2 days, we gathered 339 petitions response in protecting our preschool. Parents shared stories about how these preschools helped their families, and some share that their kids attended these preschools years ago and still remember how important they were.
Thank you for your.
Programs matter to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a blank card that I don't. Okay, so I'll use the one that has the name Stephen Nelson on it. Or is this the, blank card is however you want to be identified. It is not you.
Stephen Nelson.
It is not you. You're not the blank card. Mr. Nelson, you're not the blank card. There's a person who had the blank card.
Oh. How do you know that?
I have a card from Stephen Nelson.
Oh, okay. Good. And I'm Stephen Nelson.
No, but I'm recognizing as the president, I'm recognizing the blank card. Thank you.
Hi, I second the comments of Ling regarding fair and equitable cuts and cuts based on dollars and performance. Along those lines, we're looking at janitorial cuts to the schools, but I haven't heard what happens with janitorial at the DO. With regard to preschool, in June, I asked for the $2 million preschool contract to be pulled from consent and for details in the contract, and here we are. The numbers are not comprehensive. They do not include, for instance, the facilities costs. For instance, in October, there was a $385,000 construction change order for the preschools. I would like to know, what are the janitorial costs? What are the electric and utility costs? These are not included in the $695,000 presented before you tonight. What might we make if we rented out those facilities to other preschools? I'm not saying preschools are bad. I think preschools are great, but there are trade-offs for our TK through 8 education. Thank you.
Thank you. And while it is optional to fill out a name, it helps us avoid confusion. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. How do you highlight that you have a commitment to underserved students? Is that a platform that you ran on to get elected in this community? How do you show that in actuality, you're deeply committed to issues of equity? I think you give direction to the staff to leave the money resources where the recent system study and the teaching staff survey shows importance. One primary idea: do not reduce any pupil services FTEs at Castro and Mistral, none. Also, this also matches staff survey top theme number 1, preserve student supports beyond classrooms, counselors, unquote, etc. One of the things about RTI, it didn't work. It was one of these things that was found in that added to this weak program design for weak system alignment. What can be done about keeping RTI sciences?
Thank you. Now I'll move to the online speakers. I will start with the first speaker I see is Ananth R. I believe you have 1 minute.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Ananth. That's my ID on Zoom. I'm a parent in the Mountain View Wisman School District. I just wanted to sort of comment to double down on Trustee Anna's comment about whether we have sufficiently explored staggered cuts across several years. I think it's a pretty good idea because it'll make it easier for us to be nimble. Let's say if our revenue gets higher than anticipated in the coming years for whatever reason, then I think that's a place where we don't want to make too deep a cut and then come back from it. It also wasn't very clear to me, maybe it was clear to the others, whether the STEAM budget cuts are going to be through attrition or they're going to be realized through like actual layoffs. So if there are going to be layoffs, then again, we'll probably have like firing and hiring cycles if we don't sort of like at least think through staggering the cuts. So those are a couple of things that I just basically wanted to like throw into the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw an additional hand go up online while I was talking. In the interest of full public comment, I will take this one additional one, but I will not take any more after that. You can send us an email to respond because I allocated time based on how many speakers I saw we had. I will move on to Jeanette.
Hi, again, thank you. I am a Mountain View resident. With two kids at the currently at the district. I want to advocate for the preschool program. My kids benefit from it, and I believe strongly that this is the pathway where kids will not fall behind farther down, as there is already a big gap in between the disadvantaged students. So please, I ask for that to be kept and not touch. Also, the STEAM program, where I believe that the kids have a lot of benefits from it. Again, where the children will not have as much as what they currently have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mohan.
Yes, thank you, President DeFazio. So it's easy for us to theorize about cutting such and such program or a different program, but I wanted to know what the kids think. So I asked the one kid I could, my daughter, who's in 5th grade at Bug, and I asked her, how would it affect your STEAM education if we didn't have a dedicated STEAM teacher? And she said, Dad, it would definitely be worse. And I asked her in what ways, and she actually wrote down a list for me. She said, we don't have room in our regular classroom for STEAM supplies. We can't get as messy there. There's no time for RTI for our regular classroom teacher. And we can't do as fun projects because we need to save the time to clean up the regular classroom. So she definitely said things are going to be worse if we do that for them. She was very unhappy about it. Finally, she told me, Dad, please tell the people who are thinking about this, it's a really dumb idea. So don't take my word for it. Talk to the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to make sure everyone feels, let's keep our interruptions to a minimum. I appreciate, but we want to make everyone feel open and welcome, even if they have conflicting opinions. But so next is Haley Burton.
Hello, my name is Haley Burton, and I am the STEAM teacher at Therakoff Elementary School. I just wanted to clarify for the public and the board, Trustee Lambert's question about what would happen with TOSAs going back into the classrooms. While we may not anticipate layoffs of tenured teachers, there will be higher numbers of first and second year teachers being released from their contracts to make space for the TOSAs returning to the classroom. So just to be clear, current teachers will be losing their jobs with these cuts. I think that's important to keep in mind as you're making your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Cafecito.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And my name is Sandra, and I'm part of the group Cafecito con Aroma de Justicia. And currently, we are serving not regular families like everybody already mentioned. I mean, I'm not saying, we all kind of have a different needs. What we are serving is now those days serving the homeless, or pretty much the McKinney-Vento helping with my group. So those families this year we're giving around 200 something gift cards. So and the average of the kids has through 1-year-old to 3-year-old. So can you imagine like 200 something kids will not have the benefit from the preschool? That is for me, in my opinion. Please, board trust, be considerate and thinking about before cutting this budget, because not only it's going to be more suffer for this family who lives on the street. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next is Diana B.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My name is Diana Brzezowski, and I'm a parent in the district, and I've been a public school teacher for over 15 years. I would like to speak on behalf of our SCEF at Therakoff Lizette. She is important, valued, and has made a huge impact in our entire school community. She does her job with love, joy, kindness, and compassion, and helps all of our students and families be seen and heard. We ask you to please keep her at Therakoff full time to support the varying needs of the diverse community. Also, I'm asking that you reevaluate the proposed cuts to night custodians. By cutting the custodians part-time, we run the risk of more widespread sickness across the school. If our staff and students are sick and they're out more often than not due to unclean facilities, we lose funding as well as precious learning time. Please don't let us forget the lessons that we learned from the pandemic. We know that the decisions ahead of you are tough, and we just want to remember and remind you to not take things for granted. Thank you.
Our last online commenter is Blake Hofstad. I appreciate your patience. I know the queuing, you had your hand up very early. I appreciate you waiting, but thank you. It's your turn.
Yeah, thank you. No worries. Appreciate y'all for being here. Blake Hofstad, Organizing Director with Parent Voices California. We're strongly against any reduction in preschool services, but the district should absolutely explore modifying its contract to provide full day care, which we know better meets families' needs. One thing to consider is that income eligibility has expanded really significantly. 10 years ago, a family of four would not qualify for state preschool if they made $4,000 a month. That same family can now make $9,000 and qualify for publicly funded care. So it's possible that the district is subsidizing families who would qualify for fully funded care from the state. No families who are currently receiving care should lose care. Another consideration is that the 2020 state budget agreement included a commitment to expand childcare spaces by $200,000 rolled out over several years. 44,000 spaces are supposed to be added to the budget this year based on that agreement. They were not in the governor's January budget proposal, but we encourage the district to use its political capital to pressure the legislature to add those slots so that the district could even expand its contract with the state. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you everyone who came out and online who commented. These are tough decisions ahead of us, but I really appreciate everyone who's coming here to make their voices heard. So now the floor is closed to public comment, and I'll return to the board for discussion. I think maybe we can structure this by, I think there are some more difficult choices than others. I think we might have relative to the priorities we've identified and things. So maybe we can begin the discussion around direction to staff for things that there may be initial consensus on, and then we can move on to, but it's a proposal. I think it may make it more efficient and then preserve time for us to have more elaborate discussions, but.
It was my understanding we were just asking questions and getting information and not making decisions tonight.
But we will direct staff to be preparing recommendations, and we can, things we are aligned on may be easier versus things we need more detailed information to come to a conclusion later.
For information is different than making recommendations.
Yeah, we will not be taking any action tonight, but it will, I think our discussion will influence the recommendations that come back, right? So, Trustee Comley, do you want to start? You have your.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who came to comment in public. I know you all were here for a long time, and we had an extensive amount of community comment that was also written in about this issue. We also received the petition as well with over 300 signatures. So I'm going to come back to my focus is still on how are we within these cuts preserving classroom instruction, high quality classroom instruction, and how are we meeting the needs of our most vulnerable students and not making cuts directly to them. Those are often the voices that aren't here to be able to advocate. And so first up, I have no interest in changing preschool. I don't support doing that. I think there is a wealth of research. There is years and years and years of research about how preschool access, including not just TK, but 3 and 4s that don't qualify for TK yet, has a tremendous impact on children, not just on how they do academically, but overall life outcomes down the road. And our preschool program also, it's very hard to find childcare. I am experiencing this myself with my own 3-year-old. I have not gone to the district preschools. I think that that needs to be open to other people in the community. But it is incredibly difficult. And we know for our teachers, I've heard directly from teachers for years now who have children in our preschool program, and it makes it possible for them to work in our community. And so I think that's also incredibly important that the big ask from us years ago was to expand it to full day, because that actually made it feasible for people who are working to be able to continue their jobs. The other thing that I would like to hold off on cutting is ELOP. Again, our most vulnerable students who are engaged in that program, and yet we don't have a place for them to go right now if we eliminate that program. But I am interested in looking at if we can get more beyond the Bell funding, moving as many students over into that program and maybe phasing it out over time. But those are my 2 hard no's right off the bat. And then I'd like to hear from the rest of the board.
Who would like to go next? I know you all want to discuss this, so I'm going to call on someone. Vice President Henry.
I was going to start on what I think might be my easier end, which I am I'm supportive of reductions in technology, and I'm wondering if we can even go a little further with that, potentially going more to even particularly knowing that we have on the elementary side have access to printed curriculum. But also knowing that kids have different needs, and for some of them, the online version of the curriculum might be useful, but whether we could even do shared carts on grade levels, or at least at some of the schools that have, some of the larger schools that have 3 or 4 second grades or something, whether we could do a smaller number of shared carts and in some way reduce this. I was curious though how this, the reduction in Chromebooks relates to thinking back to our inventory discussion, how many we actually buy each year, and how much it would actually reduce to go next year to shared carts versus how that plays into it, how often we buy them, and whether that actually it's more of a over years cost or savings. But that's one area that I now that I think having them available, but it's supportive of looking if we can reduce that a little bit more. Might easy. I'm actually comfortable with the change in custodial services. It would be, I think, in general, my approach to this is the things that feel easier to me are the things that, if things change in the future, are easier to change back. And I understand that's real people that we'd be reducing. I'm not ignoring that. But it is the type of thing that could even be added back in a mid-year or something at some point, 1.5 years from now or something, if we got to a point, as opposed to a classroom level. I would like also just, I'll let people go, but as I'm looking at these things in general, the things that are kind of at top of my mind are, one, whether it's something that can be reversed if we realize things are better than we thought, or at some point in the future when they are better. And looking at some of the things that, we just got the Arinda report a couple of weeks ago, so I think we're not ready to completely make, we have a long process of making the changes based on that. But if there are things that resonated based on that we know can actually, they do both things of improving outcomes or not at least potentially improving outcomes for kids and relationships on campus and save money. Those are things that are easier for me to do. My harder things are going to be things like STEAM, but I'll let other people.
I want to
Go ahead.
back off of those comments in the reduction shared carts, but that would also include a potential reduction in amount of money being spent on software. If we're focusing on curriculum that is available for them in their hands, what other, doing a software audit, what software do we currently have contracts with that could be reduced or eliminated if we're reducing the amount of tech, particularly in the lower grades?
Let's give everyone a chance to have some comments first. Trustee Lambert.
So preschool programs and after-school programs are very important to the kids. No question about that. I think the real question is these start becoming social services, and our school district is in the business of educating kids, and this is what we really need to focus on. What I would really suggest is that these preschool and after-school programs are something a community should provide together. And so I would encourage the staff to come up with some ideas of how we could collaborate with other community organizations, the city, okay, for example, to help provide theyese services and help provide funding for these. They're important programs. We need to focus on our core business of doing education. And I don't want to see them go, but I also don't want to see the school district be the only one responsible for this.
All right. I will start with the structure for how I've been thinking through this, right? So given the community feedback we've received and the staff surveys and whatnot, I kind of bucket these out into relative priorities that have been expressed to us, right? So that the priority 1 was direct instructional, priority 2 was site-based support. And maybe my interpretation is different from other folks, but site-based support, and then central administration there. So I think according to those priorities, and I know these are, the thing that I struggle with is all of the, like, there's no free lunch for all of these. These are all people. These are all things that I'm, people's lives, and there's kids affected, and I'm trying to balance that. And so we do have to have some discipline to make tough decisions over these times. So at least within the things that I feel most confident in with the information that I have today, per the trustee question, I think the core DO, which was I think about 2.2 million in that breakdown of central administration portion of that, and maybe my interpretation is wrong there. Custodial of about 1.08, and then the technology of 0.32. Those are the ones I'm like most confident that we have the information we need to make the decision coming forward. SCEF ARIS BT reorganization, the falls in the site-based support level, but that feels more of I want to make sure that the changes we're making are there to support the sites that have the highest unduplicated pupil counts, and making sure that we're not having a drastic reduction in the supports we have and see things backslide there. If we can come back with more information and get some assessment of how that lines up, that feels like something that I have sufficient information for. So starting with the stack ranked kind of higher, clear priorities to me, those feel about right to me, at least for a starting point of discussion here. Trustee Conley?
I'm relatively aligned with that. And I think the other thing that jumped out for me was Trustee Reed's question about the impact of possibly pausing the raises on administrative salaries, basically our non-certificated, non-classified staff, although some of our administrators are certificated. But I think we have been a top-heavy district, and it is challenging to roll things backwards. I leave that to a certain extent, that is at the superintendent's discretion around how to organize the office with board input and pushback. But it might be that pausing the increase in those salaries could offset, I don't know how much, but it could have an impact on how we're looking at this budget. I'm fine with the district office cuts that's proposed. I'm fine with the technology cuts, although if we can find other wiggle room there, I think we're penny pitching a little. Like, I don't know how much we'll get out of it, but I think we can get some. The custodian is not ideal, but it also feels like if we find more money in the budget, we might be able to hire back more staff in that capacity. I was curious about custodial at the district office. I assume that will also cut back to every other night as well. Okay, thank you. And I agree. I would like to know more about how I've seen, just to give context to the public, we've been having meetings individually with the superintendent and staff as well. And there are charts all over the superintendent's office about how to figure out staffing. And so I know that there have been just a huge number of hours and conversations and research into how to manage this. But having a better understanding of the need at each school site in terms of unduplicated compared to kind of the SCEF-ARIS breakdown would be helpful for me in decision making, which I kind of talked about earlier, but I think it aligns with what Charles is saying as well.
Trustee Lambert?
Yeah, I also sort of feel compelled to make a comment about this PE versus STEAM dichotomy. Know from experience that it's really good to have separate classrooms for STEAM education and dedicated teachers. It takes a lot of time for preparation, a lot of time to clean up, and to have STEAM done in a classroom. Yeah, I think it's very, very difficult. So, looking at this where you have, well, I think the dedicated teachers for STEAM and dedicated classrooms at the same time is really important to have a quality STEAM education.
Henry?
Just to follow up on STEAM and PE, I will say that we heard from the Arenda report that I think one of the areas that we will need to examine and potentially and likely reconfigure is that RTI model and the small groups and that piece of it. I would like, though, to be doing that affirmatively as part of that review of what we can do to best improve the program and the results for our kids, not as a right now budgetary change. It ultimately may have likely would have a change in the budget, but those are two that I very much hesitate to make a change to right now that would, by a budgetary change, eliminate RTI. If it turns out that the choice is made to eliminate RTI or completely reconfigure it as a educational decision, that is different to me. There's one of the schools that's had science that pilot was the first to pilot science. Happens to be that my kids went to that one, and so that we are coming up on 10 years of a dedicated STEAM program at that school with I also acknowledge that that is a very resource school that's had, but it has had site money and PTA money going into scheme supplies, a lot of things that have really set up those classrooms, that it would be, I would not want to make a hard turn away from that. And for the other schools, even for the other schools, we're coming, it's been since 2019 and 2020 that they've been at that model with teachers who have been dedicated to learning NGSS standards. And the other piece of that for me, even with PE, is that I know that we have put a new ELA curriculum, a new SEL curriculum already on our elementary school teachers. And I hesitate to add science, 2 new subjects to them, which I know in the trustee questions that it says that teachers who were hired before 2008 have taught PE, but that's a pretty experienced teacher. We have some very experienced teachers who have not taught PE. And I know that we're going to be asking a lot of them with the changes that we want to make to look at grade level standards and all the things that are going to come out of the Arenda study. So that makes me very hesitant to put PE and science back on the elementary school teachers as a budgetary decision.
Trustee Lambert, do you still have a comment? No, okay. I'll jump in because I think the RTI discussion and the restructuring kind of crystallizes a little bit of what I've been working through in this, right? Because we're having two separate but related discussions at once. One is around the budget realities, and I think in that context, right, historically, right, we have had growing revenue, we've had our revenue increasing, lots more money to spend, and our job as a school district is not to hoard money. We have a reserve to cushion this time we have now, so we can make thoughtful decisions that are still painful, but we need to be fiscally managed well. So we were increasing expenditures with the revenue growing. That is what our job is. As revenue has fallen off, we do need to reduce that, and I think the disconnect here is, again, with the Arenda study and the program realignment that we've been working through, is as we were spending that money, we were not seeing the outcomes that we wanted for that money, right? And that is ultimately our responsibility as a board to make sure going forward that we don't get that Christmas tree effect. Because when there's more revenue, it is very easy to say yes to new things, and it's hard to turn them down afterwards, but that in this case was someone else's job, our job, right? And we have to, I think going forward, we need to make sure that we're having that discipline after we weather this and when we do the program realignment, to make sure that we're not adding new things without making sure we're, whatever time frame, whatever milestones are coming up, we're getting the results that we want out of them and that we need, and tweaking our programs as necessary. So I think making the audit later will discuss how our controls are good so far, and but I do want to make sure that we make the important decisions now, because they will be less painful than delaying them as much as possible, right? I think this was something that came up in our CSBA finance work, was the longer you delay these types of structural readjustments to make sure you're sustainable, the deeper your cuts will have to be in those out years. And so doing them now, even though they are affecting people, they're affecting people's jobs, they're adjusting, this is just the reality of the revenues that we're bringing in, and the recommendations from the assessor are going to be that we have to do that. So I think philosophically, making sure that we're aligning these two systems together going forward, and I think this is part of the hard decisions that we have to make. But Trustee Henry, your comments brought that to mind when you're talking about restructuring. There's going to be some amount of here restructuring the programs and program alignment, which we'll have ongoing discussions about after these changes percolate forward. But I've rambled a little too much, so I'll let someone else talk.
Program alignment and fiscal responsibility, that finance class, I think was really helpful in highlighting if you continue down the road, it becomes harder and harder to change course. Something that was said earlier by Superintendent Bayer, ongoing expenses versus one-time funds. We came across a lot of money when we went from basic aid to community funded, or from LCFF to community funded. And there was a lot of, we can add these things to our Christmas tree, but they were ongoing things versus things that could be one time or could be easily shifted if budgetary constraints came about. Something that comes to mind are, I think I was looking at TOSAs, site-based TOSAs for different core subjects, where something like honoring more teacher leaders and using a stipend method and working that way, where we have money, we can stipend. If we don't have money, we don't have the stipends, which makes it a little bit more flexible versus having that, now we have all these positions that we are on the chopping block. We've put ourselves in this position. So making decisions that are thinking about what are ongoing expenses that are absolutely necessary versus what are things we can shift the system to be more flexible in the future if we continue to have these budget issues as we go along, which we will. It'll ebbs and flows, but that just makes it a little bit easier. It also, who gets hired to be a TOSA? The best of the best. So you're pulling the best of the best from classrooms and the idea is for them to coach others, but where is our data on how is that actually reaching the students? How is having all the TOSAs to support the teachers impacting student learning? And if it's not, then we need to revisit the program and think about other ways to provide staff opportunities to take on leadership positions and compensate them for such and allow them that time to collaborate with their peers and to help each other grow, but do it in a more fiscally responsible manner.
Trustee Conley?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think when we go back to the Arenda report, the alignment of instruction within the elementary schools and the middle schools were key in the Arenda report. And so in part because we have the literacy intervention program and have now expanded it district-wide, I'm agnostic about ending RTI. It is not supporting students in the way that we had hoped it would now. There was a period where it was showing great growth. I remember when it was piloted at Castro and there was a remarkable impact, and then it kind of plateaued. And the Arenda report pointed to RTI not being an effective strategy right now. Whether it is PE that Rhythm and Moves, that contract that is removed, or it's STEAM, I'm still up in the air on. And I think part of me is, you know, I want to preserve teaching positions. And from what we've been told, there are no anticipated layoffs if the TOSAs and if the STEAM teachers who are TOSAs go back into the classroom. So we preserve our teaching core without having, I'm worried about next year having to lay off teachers because we didn't make the cuts we needed to make this year, right? Those are some of the trade-offs we have to look at. At the same time, could we have a science coordinator for the elementary schools who helped I mean, we're going to have to do professional development in some format around science anyways. If we do that, could there be a science coordinator position that is helping schools manage their labs and how staff use that. Not that I want to add more district administrators. Maybe that's a TOSA. But, you know, I think what you're hearing from the board is there's a lot of things before us, but we can't quite envision how some of them are going to play out, if that makes sense. And so that's one of them. Something that was brought up in the Arinda report, and I have talked about with our superintendent, is the middle school schedule was brought up as being not a positive thing for our middle school students. And we've been down that road before. It was not a popular road. And I think a lot of that was how it was rolled out and how the discussion took place. In our strategic plan, I think we're looking at long-term moving away from an 8-period schedule. That was a very clear recommendation. If that could save us money, I'd like to move forward on that. But I know a 2-week turnaround on that is probably impractical. But when it comes to STEAM and PE, I was a classroom teacher. I taught both of those things and I loved it. And teaching literacy through science, teaching math through science is such a joy for our teachers. Like it can be really, really wonderful and enriching in a classroom to have that as how you're teaching literacy and math. But teachers really need support to be able to do that. We're talking more about project-based learning, which I firmly support whenever we can do it. So maybe that's another way to look at it, is that rather than having STEAM be a pullout, we're moving back to supporting our teachers with project-based learning in the classroom, and that it's science-oriented. I'm just floating these ideas. I don't have a firm stance on either of these things, on Rhythm and Moves or STEAM yet, but I do think it makes sense to lift one of them off of the budget.
Yeah, I think to jump in, I think I started the philosophical interlude, and I thank you all for indulging me in it, to bring it back to more concrete, to make sure that we're making progress on this. So I think as I started, I think if my math was right on those first things, contingent on more analysis for the unduplicated pupils, I think that got us to around 5 by my count on budget, which is, I don't know what the consensus is, but I think those felt from comments to be relatively uncontroversial. The things that I think I would need more information that would help me kind of structure some of this is, I think if we could get some, as you come back with the recommendations, some of the prioritization that I mentioned around things that are direct instructional, things that are site-based supports, things that are central administration, and where those lines are, that I think a breakdown of the proposals would help us phrase the next difficult conversation that we have in 2 weeks. I would like to see deeper analysis of the potentially floating some of the part-day preschool, the subsidies that we provide for the extra portion that we provide, what that would look like if we go various waves of market rate for the folks that are not in the actual like grant portion of the program, just to see if we can make that more sustainable without cutting the program entirely, right? How would that affect enrollment? How would it do that? I think that would help me make the decision. I don't have any interest in cutting, and I don't think anyone has interest in completely eliminating the program, but I think that might give us some ability to understand how that will play out. Look at my notes. There's a minor thing I would like just a little more analysis of not the revenue side. So I think I phrased the city partnership potentially as revenue side. The other things I'm thinking of are like our field usage and rates, and like how we could get more folks able to use those, and whether we're at utilization, just where that would look like. That's not urgent. I don't think that needs to come here, but that might just
I was going to say Civic Centers Act.
I would like to just explore that. I've heard Civic Center Act. I've looked at it. I'd like to just see a little more detail of that, so we can make decisions around that. Continue to check my notes. STEAM versus PE generally, I feel like if push comes to shove, I would prefer the dedicated STEAM teachers and rhythm moves, because I think similar to how we discussed changes that are easier to roll back if we decide to roll them back, starting a contract with rhythm and moves again if things improve or if we decide would be something we could do versus changing the dedicated steam. And then we're going to do program realignment and things might change there, but that's we get more flexibility that way. That's, I think, just my gut on that. All right, I'll pause.
I like the way you phrase that with the flexibility of the rhythm and moves. That's a contract versus having to reorg TOSAs. I also would like to see the reduction option highlights based on those priorities President DeFazio stated earlier. And also it looks like a cost savings, but I'd like more information on, as we move or potentially move TOSAs back into classrooms, what is the cost going to look like for that? Because there will be cost in professional development. I don't know how long some of the TOSAs have been out of the classroom, but in some districts you might have TOSAs that have been out for a decade, and going from being a TOSA to back in the classroom might require a lot of additional support. So what are those supports going to cost, to see if there's if that savings really is the savings that we're looking at?
I have a question, President DeFazio. You carved out from the district office budgeting the TOSAs within the district office, those 8 point.
Yeah, I was just going based on the trustee question where it asked about the breakdown between the specific central administration. Is my interpretation of that correct, or?
No. I think that's fine. I wanted to circle back to those TOSAs. I think those are teacher coaches, and then also they've been doing some of the RTI. Is that correct? That are out of education services. Or instructional coaches. Yeah.
I think for that I would probably need, that's a place where I think I would need more information, which I think was unaddressed, which is what are the site level impacts of that component of it, right?
Yeah, so I've been in education a long time now. And at one point when I was doing education policy research, I was on a study that for a year we were studying principals across the country, and we were shadowing them and gathering all this data on their job roles. And maybe I'm old fashioned, but I really see principals as our primary educational leaders at a school site. And I think the Orenda report really pointed to that very, very clearly, that we need to be better training and supporting our principals in being the educational leader and the teacher coach, as opposed to having an outside teacher coach. So I am okay with that reassignment, knowing also that those are some of our best teachers who will have an incredible impact on the students that they serve directly in a classroom, as long as we are training and supporting our principals to be educational leaders at the site. So that's one of those things where the strategic plan, I mean, I know you can't just like wave a magic wand, Superintendent Bear, and like present us with a final strategic plan now. But for me, the trade-off there is that support for principals, which we're planning to do, to rehouse that work with the principals. But we're also keeping counselors, we're keeping many, if not all, of the SCEFs and ARISs. And so that provides a lot of behavioral support versus the principal being the educational leader.
And I just want to be careful with the behavioral support, because as the Orenda report very clearly pointed out, that our reactive approach to dealing with behavior is not remedying the situation. It's actually creating more incidents.
And I wanted to piggyback on that in that we are adding all those interns, which is a more proactive approach to kind of balance some of that, the reactive policies and staff that have been hired.
Yeah, and it's not a magic wand. It's going to take time, effort, training, energy, yeah, all of those things. But we have to get back to a more proactive approach to behavior and see that it's a core function of instruction.
Oh, go ahead.
Trustee Henry?
Yes, I think that's what makes me comfortable with the proposed changes and the SCEF, ERAS, and BT category, as long as it is done in conjunction with the support for the principals and the classroom teachers. I guess even further reason that I don't want to then make them all teach science, because adding even more things they're going to need to work through, because one of the things that definitely stood out to me in the Orinda presentation was seeing that uptick in the number of reports of behavioral things in Power School, and I just don't think that actually corresponds to there being 8,000 things happening in the classroom that would have that needed to be documented. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has that childhood fear of things going on my permanent record. Just the more that you think of things as a thing that needs to be written down, I think is not the right approach. Very much in favor of a intervention and prevention model, which I think I'd say with the ERASs that I see at the middle school level, I definitely see that's what they're doing. And I think the idea of looking at the ERAS job description and that role as part of this proposal is really important. You realize I don't think I've said much of anything about the preschool. I was grateful to see the additional information about options in the presentation and really appreciate that. I very much value early childhood education, and particularly when it can serve. I think we do have a role in providing early childhood education, particularly when it serves the students, when we can best set up some of the students who we can put on a trajectory to come into our school district and be prepared, and who might not otherwise have that preparation. So I would be curious as this returns to learn more about option C of the options. I thought in looking at the conversation about preschool from a couple of years ago that modifying the contract required providing additional days of service, but it seems like maybe in this scenario that's not an issue.
We have to petition to ask for a change in our contract. When we went back, when we asked about it previously, they seemed amenable to wanting us to, or allowing us to change our contract how it worked for us. They don't want districts to get rid of preschool, so I think they'll be flexible.
I think that just I think that also that brought to mind something that I've been thinking through with the preschool program and the TKs, right? Like on the direct balance sheet, it looks like a cost, but I do think that there is value to us as a district and potentially savings down the road for kids that are onboarded into school earlier, and we start the early childhood education earlier and actually get them used to school, get them education starting off. There's less remediation we need to do to bring in kids that are older, that are just starting out at school. And I do feel like there is a return in maintaining that. And so it's hard to capture here, but I would like to see that. And I'll try to keep us on track. Yes. Yes, I will do one last comment because there's one program I did not address here, which is ELAP, I think. I want to discuss ELAP, where I think the thing that I the change there feels like we still have uncertainty and some amount of time on, where if the governor's budget goes through, we can make, if the recommendation comes in later, we can make a recommendation to perform cuts there contingent on like funding falling through. And then if it comes through, we can maintain the program. But that's something that I just would like to see maybe as the option later. It's not a decision yet, but I think that's something where we have some flexibility on that. Trustee
I
Collins.
have one last thing to say on preschool. So when we had the discussion about preschool in the fall of 2023 and the spring of 2024, part of it was looking at the trade-off between the half day and then extended day. And it sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director, Ms. Bauer, but we were not always able to fill our half-day slots that were state funded. Because for many of the families who qualify, and we heard this from the families who came to speak to us, it's not feasible for them. They need a full day placement for their child because they have to go to work. And so that is part of why then we were looking at, we would get the same amount of funding, but we could go to full day year round, get the same amount of funding, but serve fewer children. Or we could stick with half day and then supplement from our own budget to make it longer. We'd be able to serve more children overall. And what we heard very loud and clear from the community at that time from parents was that they could not participate in the program if it wasn't a fuller day. And so I understand the desire to try and make preschool more cost neutral. In the grand scheme of things, the $700,000 that we're putting into it is small compared to the totality of what we're looking at and compared to other things in our budget. And I think we need, I'm worried that this board with its new configuration, you all have never had a preschool update. You've never had a full report on the preschool program. And this might have been your first time hearing directly from parents in the community about our preschool program. And so I'm just very worried about trying to tinker with it to save tens of thousands of dollars and then not having it actually work for the families who need it.
Thank you. Should we move on? Do you have all the information you need? All right. Nothing unaddressed. I mean, it is important for us to have these in-depth conversations, and I appreciate everyone's discussing together and trying to come to this. The actions are not here, but I know we'll get more information next time. So closing that item, we will now move on to the name of this is 2024-2025 audit report, item 9A. Dr. Westover, please present and hand off.
Good evening. We also have Nadia Pongo, who is online to be with us tonight if there's any questions that come up about the audit, and Kyle Montgomery, who was our auditor, who's here to present.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. I'll go ahead and take over now. Going to plan on going ahead and showing my screen for a brief slide deck that I've prepared. Just give me a moment to get that set up. All right, everyone can see the slides now?
We can.
Give me a quick thumbs up. Yep. Okay, great. All right, so I'm here to discuss the results of the annual independent audit for the year ended June 30, 2025. Since it is getting pretty late, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. When we get to the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. So I'm Kyle Montgomery. I'm a CPA, a partner here with Christy White down in San Diego, and I am the lead partner on this audit engagement. So a summary of audit opinions. There are 3 audit opinions included in this report. The first is the report on the audit of the financial statements. The objective of the financial portion of the audit is to determine whether the financial statements have been fairly presented in all material respects as of that financial statement date of June 30, 2025. So that's the objective there for the financial statement audit, and that report is outlined in detail on page 1 of the audit report. The second opinion provided is the report on compliance for each major federal program. And so the objective of the federal compliance single audit is to determine whether district complied with all direct and material compliance requirements as outlined in the OMB compliance supplement that is issued annually for federal programs. And that report is outlined in detail on page 70 of the audit report. Lastly, we have the report on state compliance. That report is outlined in detail on page 73. And what we're doing there, as far as the objective goes, is to determine whether the district complied with the applicable requirements prescribed in the K-12 state audit guide that's issued annually by the Education Audit Appeals Panel. And so on page 77 of the audit report, we have the summary of auditors' results. This is sort of the one snapshot page that provides an overview of what was the outcome of the audit. It outlines the three categories, financial statements, federal awards, and state awards. So on this page, you'll see that each one of the audit opinions provided was unmodified. So an unmodified opinion for financial statements, federal awards, and state awards with respect to each one of those audit objectives that we just went over. An unmodified opinion is sort of the best outcome that can, or the best opinion that can be provided as a result of an audit. So good news there. We did not have any findings or question cost to report in any of these areas for this year's audit. And then one other thing we are required to do in our GASB audit reports is an update on prior year audit findings. But the good news there is that there were no findings to revisit from the 23-24 report. That page is outlined on 81, but again, no findings to follow up on from the prior year. So really not much to discuss there. That takes us to the end of the slides. So, overall, the audit went really smoothly this year. The team with Rebecca and Nadia did a great job getting us everything we need, as they always do, and always a pleasure to work with. Can't say enough nice things about them and how much we appreciate the hard work that they put into, facilitating the audit. With that kind of takes me to the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions that you guys might have on the audit opinions or any of the contents of the report. Just let me know.
Thank you for the report, and thank you for staying with us this late hour. I'm glad we didn't make you come out for another meeting. We will now, questions from trustees. Anyone have questions for the presenters? No? Okay. We will now move on to public comment on item 9A. If any members of the public in person wish to address the board regarding this item, please turn in a speaker card. If you're online, please use the raise hand function. I'll wait to see how many speakers we have. Seeing none in person and no hands raised right now, I will close public comment. I will move on to board discussion and action, because we have an action to approve this, right? So, Trustee Henry.
I'll just say a quick thank you for answering the questions and the questions from trustees about the audit. I appreciate the format of the audit, because it's a format of financial statements that makes more sense to me, and it then helps me learn about the other types of financial reports that you provide. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, and in general, I appreciate, right, this is part of the overall process of budget handling, but this tells us that we are working with accurate numbers for our future planning, and things are as they stated, and we have kind of a good starting point for where we are or have been recently. It makes us able to do effective planning for the future in these tough conversations. Trustee Lambert.
I move that the board accept the audit as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Trustee Lambert, seconded by Vice President Henry. We'll have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously with trustee Lambert, Conley, Reed, Henry, and DeFazio in favor. That concludes this item. We think, what did we not, we moved all the other items around. So I think is there any further business? Hearing none and having reached the end of the agenda, the meeting is adjourned at 11:42 p.m. The next regular meeting is scheduled for January 29th, 2026.